The Istanbul Cipher. Chapter 10. The youth center smelled like printer toner and day-old cimet when I walked in. The usual clatter and chatter were gone, only hushed voices, quiet keystrokes. The weekend had changed them. Layla sat cross-legged on the floor beneath the corkboard, a roll of hand-sketched site markers unfurling beside her like a secret scroll. Her pencil moved with precision, labeling one coordinate after another. Sibyl knelt beside her, flipping through yellowed pages from what I recognized as Anahid's notebook. Her grandmother's oral history, transcribed in tidy script. Isla stood near the whiteboard, tapping coordinates into her phone. She didn't argue, didn't push, just nodded every so often and called out GPS points that Sibyl checked against her overlays. It was quiet but not empty. Focused, heavy, with intent. I cleared my throat. Looks like we're plotting something illegal. Layla didn't look up. Not illegal, just unapproved. Very reassuring. That earned the smallest flicker of a smile. I stepped closer and studied the map. Circles and crosses dotted the neighborhoods of Balat, Kumkapu, and Samatya. Some were faint, penciled lightly, others bold, ringed with annotations. This one, Layla said, tapping a cluster near Kariyem Mosque. She called it the place where prayers change shape. Sibyl added. She said when the bells stopped, the call to prayer took over. But nobody tore the bell tower down. They just covered it in tiles. It's not just a map, Layla added quietly. It's her voice. I nodded, letting the weight of that settle. Not data points, not tech specs, memories, reconstructed from fragments, held together by willpower and paper. There was no question anymore what this was about. It wasn't heritage, it was survival. And for the first time, they weren't treating the past like something they needed permission to protect. Kansu met us behind the annex just after the museum closed. She wore a dark hoodie, hair tucked under a baseball cap like she was prepping for a heist. She gave a small nod to Sibyl and Layla and jerked her thumb toward the rear staff door. I've got 12 minutes. No phones, no backups, just eyes and notes, she whispered. If my supervisor finds out, I'm toast. I hung back. Let them take the lead. This was their moment. Inside, the air was sterile, archival quiet. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Kansu led them down a narrow corridor to a locked door and keyed in a code from memory. The room beyond was cramped, but humming with quiet energy. A single terminal surrounded by low metal filing racks and a table of photo binders labeled by decade. Restoration documentation, she whispered. Stuff that never made it to public catalogs, internal logs, political hot potatoes. She clicked into a file tree and opened a scanned logbook from the early 90s. Dusty black and white photos blinked into view. Bricks, domes, mosaics, all half hidden under plaster or hastily painted over. One photo stopped them cold. A sealed chapel wall, faded plaster curling away to reveal a partial mosaic. Two hands, clasped beneath a star and crescent. Not Christian, not Muslim. Something in between. Layla leaned in. Is that? I've never seen that symbol before, Kansu said. It wasn't cataloged. No location metadata either. Sibyl didn't move. She just stared, her face drained of color. I've seen it, she murmured. Or something close. Layla glanced at her. Where? Sibyl's voice dropped to a whisper. on a scrap of fabric my grandmother kept. She sewed it into the hem of her apron. After the pogroms, I could feel the shift in the air, something deeply personal cracking the surface. This wasn't about symbols or clues anymore. This was a memory trying to find its way home. Back at the youth center, the lights flickered as a storm rolled over the Bosphorus. Sibyl sat curled in a corner, sketching the clasped hand symbol from memory. Her pencil barely made a sound. Layla hovered nearby but said nothing at first. I stayed back too. This wasn't mine to navigate. After a while, Layla knelt beside her. Did she ever tell you where the fabric came from? Sibyl didn't look up. She used to say, some things were safer without stories. The pencil stopped. She rubbed the eraser hard, as if the lines themselves were dangerous. I watched the tension building in her shoulders, like she was holding in the weight of an entire lineage, too heavy for one girl to carry. My grandmother had this hiding routine, Sibyl continued, not just for objects, for truths. Every photo, every document, every scrap got wrapped in newspaper, sealed in tins, hidden in walls, like even remembering was a liability. Layla sat beside her. She wasn't wrong. But you're here now. You get to choose. Sibyl gave a sad smile. I don't know if I'm brave or stupid for trying. I stepped in then, careful not to speak too loud. Trying is the brave part, especially when silence feels safer. She met my eyes. You ever have to hide your story? I nodded slowly. I once got asked to step down from a school I loved because I encouraged students to question too much, push boundaries, ask why instead of just how. They said I was disrupting standardized growth. Sibyl snorted. That sounds familiar. I offered her a faint smile. Turns out, not everyone wants kids to know how powerful they are. She looked back at the sketch. Then maybe we're doing the right kind of dangerous. I didn't say anything else. I didn't have to. The storm outside rattled the windows. But in that moment, inside that dim room, Sibyl had finally stepped out of hiding. And I realized I wasn't just helping her find history. She was helping me remember why I ever cared about it. The youth center quieted as the storm passed. Most of the group had gone home, but the sound of typing echoed from the side room. Emre and Ayla still buried in the project. I lingered by the doorway, out of sight, letting their voices come through without interference. This column's mislabeled, Ayla said. Her voice was clipped, precise. You're feeding metadata into the wrong table again. I'm not, Emre snapped. The schema changed when I modularized the encryption layer. A pause. Then, did you even test the output? Yes. Silence. A few keystrokes. Then Ayla again. Lower now. Why do you always act like everything's going to break? The click of keys stopped. I could hear Emre breathing, shallow and uneven. Because it usually does, he said. The air in the room shifted. That wasn't sarcasm. It was an admission. You think I want to keep triple-checking everything? He said. I'm not paranoid. I've just seen too many good things fall apart. Ayla didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice had lost its edge. You think this is going to fall apart too? I think... He exhaled hard. I think if I don't overbuild it, if I don't prep for sabotage, someone will take it from us again. Another silence. This one heavier. Then Ayla said, almost too quietly to hear, "I'll stay and help." I stepped back from the doorway before they noticed me. This wasn't a teacher moment. It was something more sacred than that. Two kids, slowly lowering their shields, reshaping how they saw each other. They're not just coding an app, I thought. They're rebuilding trust with the world and with each other. Sometimes, the most radical thing you can do is stay in the room. The night air was sharp, almost metallic, as Sibyl and I stepped out of the youth center. She hadn't said much since the group meeting ended, just packed her bag, nodded at my offer to walk her home, and headed for the street without waiting. We crossed under the flickering lights of Istiklal, the city humming around us but distant somehow, like we were walking through a memory instead of a place. Halfway down a quiet alley, she finally spoke. "Mr. Merritt, what do you do when your history isn't in the history books?" Her voice didn't waver, but there was something behind it, something brittle. I slowed my pace. "You teach students who write new ones," I said. She glanced sideways at me, eyebrows raised. "I'm serious," I added. "I got pushed out of a school once because I told my 8th graders to challenge their textbooks. Turns out, not everyone wants kids thinking for themselves." Sibyl gave a short laugh. "So you got fired for asking too many questions?" Something like that. We walked a bit more. I could hear the tension in her steps, the way her shoes scuffed against the sidewalk like she was trying not to be heard. When we reached her apartment gate, she didn't go inside. Instead, she turned and leaned against the wall. "It's not that I'm scared we'll fail," she said. "I'm scared we'll succeed and no one will care. That we'll uncover something important and it'll still disappear, like we never tried." Her eyes weren't angry. They were tired. Not the tired that sleep could fix, but the kind that came from being invisible for too long. I nodded slowly. I felt that way too. But every story told is one more they can't erase. Sibyl didn't say anything, but she reached into her coat and pulled out the printout of the hybrid symbol from the mosaic. She folded it once, then twice, and tucked it into my hand. "Then let's make sure this one doesn't get lost." The youth center's lights were off by the time I passed it again. I didn't go in. I just kept walking, giving the night its silence. Later, much later, I found myself on the top deck of bus 28, squeezed against the window while the kids clustered a few rows ahead. It was one of those rattling old models that creaked on every turn, the kind where your knees touch the seat in front and you're always slightly off balance. Layla sat closest to the front, flipping through her grandmother's notebook like a field commander scanning war maps. Each page was covered in markings, stars, annotations, half-translated phrases scrawled in the margins. Ayla and Emre were across the aisle, shoulders nearly touching. They didn't talk much, just shared a phone screen, heads tilted slightly together. Emre kept glancing at Ayla like he wanted to say something, but couldn't figure out how. She didn't press him. That was new. Sibyl sat by herself, one row back. She didn't look at anyone, just the city. Her reflection in the window flickered between streetlights, overlaid on crumbling buildings and freshly painted billboards. I saw her lips move once, like she was rehearsing something only she could hear. From where I sat, I could see all of them, spread out like fragments of something not yet whole, but edging closer, closer than they'd been before the crash, before the sabotage, before the shame. They weren't just rebuilding a project. They were building each other. I took out my notebook and uncapped my pen. I didn't think, I just wrote. When the world forgets your name, the only way back is through someone else remembering. The bus rattled around a corner, and no one noticed me watching. That was fine. I wasn't the hero of this story. Maybe I never had been. I looked down at the folded mosaic printout in my coat pocket, Siebel's quiet trust. Proof that history isn't only what survives. Sometimes, it's what someone refuses to let die. And these kids? They weren't letting anything die quietly.